there's a spaceship hovering, I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised. And one of them is the UFO thing. I mean, there are people who really believe that there are UFOs visiting the Earth.
UFO sightings in the United States are no longer fringe stories.
That's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO and just bounced right off. And it kept going.
Senate hearings, Pentagon reports, and leaked military footage have forced the mystery into the open. In one shocking session, retired Major David Grush testified that the US has secretly recovered non-human craft and hidden them from the public. Now physicist Brian Cox has stepped in with a sharp warning, reminding us that the real truth about UFOs may be far more unsettling than we want to believe. Could Brian's warning mean we've been asking the wrong questions about aliens all along? Join us as we unveil the mystery behind UFOs that Brian Cox tried to warn us about. The lingering mysteries. For a long time now, the US government has acknowledged that UFOs, now officially called UAPs, are real phenomena, yet it has consistently denied having proof that extraterrestrials are behind them. The boundary between mystery and explanation has remained hazy, fueling decades of fascination. It all began in 1947, when businessman Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 fast-moving, crescent-shaped objects darting across the skies near Mount Rainier while piloting his small plane. He estimated their speed to be several thousand miles per hour and remarked that their motion reminded him of saucers skipping over water. A newspaper mischaracterized his description and labeled the objects saucer-shaped, sparking the famous term flying saucer. From that moment, the phenomenon captured public imagination, and sightings rapidly increased. A year after the incident, the United States Air Force launched its first investigation, Project Sign. Some officials believed the objects were advanced Soviet aircraft, while a few researchers quietly suggested the extraterrestrial hypothesis. The idea that these strange visitors might be spacecraft from other worlds. Project Sign soon gave way to Project Grudge, which was followed in 1952 by the longest-running inquiry, Project Blue Book, based at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Over its lifespan until 1969, Blue Book recorded more than 12,000 reports. Roughly 6% of these cases remained officially unidentified, a category that left room for speculation. The 1950s and 1960s saw a surge of reports and even radar sightings, including a dramatic wave near Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1952. Although experts attributed those incidents to atmospheric conditions, such as temperature inversions, the explanations did not convince everyone. The Central Intelligence Agency soon urged the government to gather an expert scientific panel, leading to the 1953 Robertson Panel. After days of review, the panel concluded that most sightings could be explained by stars, planets, meteors, balloons, or aircraft, and that there was no evidence supporting the extraterrestrial hypothesis. However, parts of its findings remained classified for decades, fueling suspicions of a cover-up. In 1966, another review was ordered, this time under physicist Edward U. Condon. His team examined 59 intriguing cases in detail, publishing their findings in what became known as the Condon Report. Like the Robertson Panel, the committee dismissed any need for further study, concluding that UFOs showed no signs of extraordinary origins. Their verdict led to the closure of Project Blue Book in 1969, but by then, the UFO obsession had become firmly embedded in American culture. Still, not all experts were satisfied. Astronomer J. Allen Hynek, who had worked closely with the official projects, later argued that a small fraction of reports hinted at something more. He went on to found the Center for UFO Studies, keeping the investigation alive. Decades later, The revelation of the Pentagon's secret Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, which ran from 2007 to 2012, reignited interest. Even so, the questions lingered, refusing to vanish no matter how many explanations are offered. And when the Pentagon finally stepped forward with its own sweeping study, the world leaned in closer. Would this be the moment the truth about UFOs was finally revealed? The Pentagon's unveiling of UFO truths. A new Pentagon study, stretching across nearly a century of reported sightings, declared with clinical certainty that no evidence of aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence has ever been uncovered, reaffirming decades of past US government assessments that sought to cut through waves of speculation and mystery. The investigation, conducted by the Defense Department's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, pored over cases dating back to 1945, dissecting testimonies, radar data, and eyewitness accounts that had long fueled humanity's fascination with the unknown skies. Their exhaustive analysis revealed nothing to suggest alien life, nor any secretive attempts by the US government or private companies to reverse engineer otherworldly technology. A revelation that struck at the heart of countless conspiracy theories. Officials explained that across all levels of classification, the conclusion had been consistent. Most sightings were nothing more than ordinary objects or atmospheric phenomena, often exaggerated by human misidentification. While another volume of the report is expected to focus on more recent research, this release was designed to clarify decades of confusion. For years, US officials had tried to bring clarity to the legions of reported encounters, yet no credible evidence of extraterrestrial life had emerged. Even the highly anticipated 2021 government review, which catalogued 144 puzzling incidents of aircraft or devices seemingly defying logic with strange speeds or unusual flight paths, offered no extraterrestrial link, instead calling for more reliable data collection. The subject gained renewed intensity last summer when a retired Air Force intelligence officer stood before Congress, alleging that the government had been secretly retrieving and reverse engineering alien craft for years. The Pentagon firmly denied his claims, pointing out that the newly established office responsible for investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena had indeed received hundreds of fresh reports, but had still found nothing to suggest alien involvement. The authors of the latest study emphasized that their purpose was not to mock believers, but to apply rigorous scientific analysis to a topic that had gripped American imagination for generations. They acknowledge that many people sincerely hold these beliefs, often shaped by personal experiences, trusted testimonies from others, or the powerful influence of media and online outlets that seem credible to them. They added that the proliferation of television shows, best-selling books, blockbuster movies, and the endless stream of internet and social media content focused on UFOs had amplified these beliefs, weaving them deeper into sections of the population. The report even addressed phenomena often linked to alien abductions, noting that experiences such as sleep paralysis might explain why some individuals felt watched or immobilized in the night, mistaking a biological occurrence for an extraterrestrial encounter. Still, the mystique surrounding UFOs remained unshaken, for the very absence of proof seemed to fuel the hunger for answers. Even so, the absence of solid evidence only seemed to fan the flames of belief, keeping the UFO mystery alive. And just as speculation reached a fever pitch, a familiar scientific voice stepped in, one determined to bring reason into the debate. This new data appears to confirm what physicist Brian Cox has long warned us, that UFO sightings in the USA, no matter how compelling they seem, consistently crumble under scientific scrutiny, revealing more about human psychology than interstellar visitors. What did Professor Brian Cox have to say about these extraordinary claims? Professor Brian Cox weighs in on UFO claims. In the wake of a sensational US Senate hearing that captured global attention, Professor Brian Cox, the well-known particle physicist and broadcaster, offered a voice of measured skepticism that cut through the dramatic swirl of alien speculation. It was a moment where, in a sense, Brian Cox warned us against the seductive allure of testimony without tangible proof, a caution that feels increasingly prescient. The hearing had seen retired Major David Grush, a former intelligence officer, deliver electrifying testimony, alleging that the United States had concealed a secret, decades-long program dedicated to retrieving and reverse engineering UFOs. Grush went as far as to suggest that the government had likely been aware of non-human activity dating back to the 1930s, a narrative that many claim recent UFO sightings in the USA confirm. The Pentagon swiftly denied his assertions of a cover-up, firmly stating there was no truth behind the allegations. Into this maelstrom of speculation stepped Professor Cox, who remarked that people had been asking his thoughts on the matter following the high-profile hearing. After watching several clips, he explained that while he saw individuals who appeared to genuinely believe in what they were saying, they were making extraordinary claims without offering the extraordinary evidence needed to support them. His words carried the calm but pointed weight of a scientist devoted to evidence-based truth, offering balance against the fever of unverified testimonies that some claim UFO sightings in the USA confirm. Cox admitted he had little more to add beyond the idea that it would indeed be incredible if such claims were true, noting how thrilling it would be if humanity were not the only conscious means through which the universe sought to understand itself. Such a discovery would even ease the unique burden on humanity, relieving some of the existential pressure that comes with being, as far as we know, the sole intelligent voice in the Milky Way. Yet, in the same breath, he tempered that awe with realism, saying that as things stand, he still feels the full weight of that pressure, and so it is perhaps wiser to focus on preserving our fragile world instead of placing hope in the possibility that, as Carl Sagan once imagined, some benevolent visitor might descend to rescue us from ourselves. But Cox wasn't done. He later offered a theory as witty as it was unsettling, sparking fresh debate online. Could the silence of the universe be tied to the very invention we rely on most? Brian Cox's witty theory on aliens. Many scientists have long speculated about the mysterious silence from extraterrestrial civilizations, but Brian Cox recently shared a bold new theory that captivated the internet. In a typically sharp and witty post on X, he mentioned that civilizations are inevitably crushed not long after inventing the internet, suggesting that the very tool meant to connect us could also lead to our downfall. He later added that he believed it might not be long before our spacecraft were the only relics left of what he described as an increasingly dim-witted civilization. A stark warning that feels eerily confirmed not by visiting aliens, but by the mysterious objects tracked in our own skies. Almost as if the recent wave of UFO sightings in the USA confirm his grim prophecy. His comments followed heated trolling he faced after praising NASA's Voyager 1 probe, which against all odds has become fully operational again for the first time since November. Cox, clearly impressed by human engineering, observed with amazement that a spacecraft launched back in 1977 could still be repaired remotely from Earth, a statement that triggered humorous and sarcastic replies online. One user quipped that while NASA could fix a probe billions of miles away, their printer sitting 3 feet from a laptop still wouldn't connect. Another mocked the situation by joking that maybe aliens had been kind enough to give Voyager 1 a jumpstart, while conspiracy theorists chimed in with sneering comments, questioning whether anyone could really believe such missions were genuine. Responding with evident exasperation, Cox explained that the foolish replies to what had been intended as a simple tribute to engineering brilliance only convinced him further that the end of human civilization could indeed come at the hands of its own stupidity, not external threats. He tied his thoughts back to the famous Fermi paradox, the puzzling contradiction between the high probability of alien civilizations and the complete lack of evidence for their existence. Cox admitted that until recently he had assumed the answer lay in biology, since complex life systems might be rare, but he now leaned toward the darker view that civilizations often destroy themselves shortly after discovering advanced technology. This sobering idea gained attention just as NASA confirmed Voyager 1 was back to sending clear scientific data after months of garbled transmissions. Launched in 1977, the probe has traveled more than 15 billion miles from Earth, making it the most distant human-made object in existence. It famously returned the pale blue dot photograph, which showed Earth as nothing more than a tiny speck floating in the cosmic ocean, reminding humanity of its fragile place in the universe. Voyager 1's recovery was no small feat. After a glitch in November had left its instruments sending incomprehensible data, NASA engineers painstakingly sent commands across the vast emptiness of interstellar space. By April, they had partially restored communication, and by May, all 4 of its science instruments were once again fully operational. Along with its twin, Voyager 2, which has travelled more than 12 billion miles, the spacecraft continue to push the boundaries of exploration decades beyond their original 5-year mission. Even after many years, the Voyager spacecraft keeps sending messages from the edge of space, but their lonely journey raises a big question. If our machines can reach so far, why hasn't anyone answered? Are we really alone in the universe? A simple response. To paraphrase a wise thinker, humanity is left to face a chilling paradox. Either we are completely alone in the vast universe, or we are not, and both possibilities are equally terrifying to imagine. At this moment, there has been no proven contact with extraterrestrial life, and the reasons for this silence have long stirred debates filled with awe, mystery, and unsettling wonder. Yet, in the face of this cosmic silence, a new phenomenon demands our attention. The recent surge of highly publicized UFO sightings in the USA. For some, these unexplained events seem to challenge the very foundations of this profound debate, seemingly offering tangible evidence where none existed before. Some scientists believe that one day our transmissions might echo back with a reply from distant beings, while others insist that if advanced civilizations ever had the ability to travel across galaxies and visit Earth, the brutal truth is they may already have destroyed themselves with their own catastrophic technologies. This unsettling possibility suggests that the very power to traverse the stars might carry with it the seeds of inevitable self-destruction. In the middle of these debates stands Professor Brian Cox, whose thoughtful skepticism about the existence of aliens adds another dimension to the question. Indeed, in a way, Brian Cox warned us against leaping to extraterrestrial conclusions for every unexplained aerial phenomenon, urging a more rigorous scientific approach before we let our imaginations confirm it. He once explained in a podcast discussion that he leaned toward the camp that believed we were likely alone, emphasizing that in his view there might only be one civilization in the Milky Way, and that was us. He stressed the significance of this possibility, pointing out that astronomy and cosmology offered the framework within which humanity should search for meaning and guidance on how to behave. He asked his listeners to imagine the staggering thought that Earth could be the only place in the galaxy where intelligence had emerged, and if that were true, then humanity, fragile and insignificant in physical size, should recognize itself as an extraordinarily valuable phenomenon. He reflected that nowhere else in the Milky Way might meaning exist, which made our role in the cosmos incredibly precious. Professor Cox also reminded people that the discussion of alien existence was not always common in scientific circles, but that the question carried profound philosophical weight. He explained that meaning was undeniable on Earth simply because it mattered to us. Yet he believed this was a local and temporary phenomenon that arose from a rare arrangement of atoms that made up human beings themselves. In his words, humanity was nothing more than an unusual and precious configuration of matter in an otherwise indifferent universe. This meant that if his reasoning was correct, then we were the only island of meaning adrift in the vast ocean of our galaxy. The imagery paints Earth not as just a small rock orbiting an ordinary star, but as the sole cradle of consciousness in an immense and silent void. The chilling humour of stock images mocking the idea of aliens stumbling into our cameras fades quickly when contrasted with Cox's sobering message. Instead of green visitors hiding from governments, the reality may be that we are shouting into a dark expanse where no one else exists to listen. And so, humanity is left with a profound and haunting thought. Perhaps aliens aren't real after all, and we are utterly alone on this fragile blue sphere, floating in the infinite emptiness of space. This is the core of what Brian Cox warned us about, that the search for meaning might ultimately be an internal one, a truth that the fervour around UFO sightings in the USA, rather than disproving, might tragically confirm it. This unsettling possibility casts our existence in a fragile light, alone, unheard, drifting through silence. But if no voices answer from the stars, then perhaps the real mystery lies closer to home. How did life spark here on Earth? The fiery origins of life and the alien question. In the beginning, Earth was a violent and hostile world, swirling with fiery magma and relentlessly battered by asteroids and meteorites that left enormous craters carved into its raw surface. Rivers of molten rock cooled and hardened into jagged crust, which in time was overtaken by a vast primeval ocean where towering hydrothermal vents spewed scalding water from the burning mantle below. From this chaotic and hellish cauldron, the first fragile sparks of life are believed to have emerged. Evidence of this ancient miracle surfaced in 2013, when fossils of microbial life almost as old as Earth itself were discovered in the scorched basalts of Australia's Pilbara Craton. These stromatolites, layered formations built by colonies of microorganisms, thrived in ancient floodlands long since dried, and at nearly 3.5 billion years old, they stood as the oldest known traces of life, until even older microfossils, dating back 3.77 billion years, were unearthed in Canada just 4 years later. These relics, believed to have formed near an ancient hydrothermal vent that once bubbled at the bottom of the ocean, seem to strengthen the idea that life had crawled into existence in such fiery environments. Yet even these remarkable findings could not unravel the deepest mystery of all: how the very first common ancestor of life actually appeared. The puzzle was further complicated by carbon trapped in 4.1 billion year old zircons, which hinted that life might have taken root even earlier. Could it be that simple elements fused into prebiotic molecules, and those molecules assembled into something increasingly complex until they crossed the threshold into what could truly be called alive? Most scientists exploring the origins of life lean towards some variation of this theory. Yet, biologist Robert Endres of Imperial College London refused to dismiss alternative possibilities. Endres reflected that it was worth asking whether Earth had been terraformed or whether order itself had miraculously coalesced from chaos under the relentless laws of physics. He pointed out that today humans seriously consider terraforming Mars or Venus in scientific journals. So if advanced civilizations existed elsewhere, it would not be far-fetched to imagine that they too might have attempted such interventions, whether out of curiosity, survival, or design. Science fiction has long toyed with such concepts, from the enigmatic Black Monolith in 2001, A Space Odyssey, to futuristic visions of cyborgs and sentient machines reshaping worlds in Star Trek. The idea of directed panspermia has lingered since the 1970s, when Crick and Orgel suggested that a dying civilization could scatter the seeds of life across habitable planets to preserve their legacy. Whether aliens truly brought life to Earth remains unknown, but Endres emphasized that the question should not be dismissed outright. If these sightings keep piling up, how long can officials deny the truth? And what exactly was Brian Cox warning us to prepare for? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.